Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Let's gather a little spiritual nourishment together, feed our inner lives a bit, before we really dive into a topic that touches the absolute core of our daily human experience. Today, we're exploring a deeply profound concept from biblical history that actually gives us a structured framework for handling our emotions. Basically, we're looking for the ultimate destination for our hearts when we are just completely overflowing with feeling.
Okay, I need you to be totally honest with me for a second. Have you ever been sitting alone at night, maybe lying in bed, scrolling through your contacts, desperately looking for someone to talk to, only to just give up, sigh, and lock your screen? You know that exact feeling, right? Maybe you just got hit with a massive life-altering blow, or maybe something absolutely incredible just happened. You eagerly open your messages, you're swiping through hundreds of names, and suddenly it hits you. Out of all these people, there isn't a single soul you feel you can actually talk to in this specific moment.
Well, this perfectly illustrates why we end up just putting the phone down. It's what we call the human empathy limit. It's this fascinating, kind of brutal psychological and emotional double-edged sword that validates so much of our modern loneliness. Think about it. On one hand, our extreme sorrows just feel way too incredibly heavy. We assume nobody can fix it, or we just don't want to burden them. But on the other hand, our absolute highest joys, they feel a little too boastful to share. And so, we're left completely isolated at the two most extreme ends of the human experience.
Let's actually break down why we do this. It's a huge irony, really. See, we hide our pain because we know our friends are dealing with their own stress, right? We have this deep, deep fear of dumping heavy negative energy on people who are already at capacity. But the crazy part is that sharing pure, unadulterated joy is often way harder than finding someone to cry with. We freeze up. We're terrified our happiness is going to come off as frivolous bragging, or worse, that it might accidentally sting a friend who happens to be going through a tough time. Sadness with no one to understand, and joy with no one to share. Honestly, it is the deepest form of modern isolation.
Section 1. Navigating the deepest sorrow, when the world collapses.
So looking at the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, there's this scene that is just absolutely devastating. It details the unjust beheading of John the Baptist. Here is a great prophet, unjustly murdered simply because of a tyrant king's absurd, cruel order. I mean, imagine being his disciples. They had to stand by and watch their beloved, deeply respected teacher die a senseless, tragic death. The impact of that trauma is just unimaginable. Their entire world was literally shattered in an instant. There was no bright side here. There was just absolute dark despair.
But then, look at how the historical text describes their reaction. It has this incredible, calm clarity. It simply says, John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus. That's it. There are no long paragraphs about them screaming at the injustice or getting permanently lost in endless despair. In the face of monumental tragedy, the reaction was beautifully, perfectly simple.
Now, let's look at how this builds into a super practical framework for us today. When we face crushing loss, whether it's a broken relationship, a failed career, the death of a dream, we often, metaphorically speaking, sit next to the corpse of that failure. We just stare at it and cry, completely stuck. But instead of just sitting in the dark next to the corpse of our failures, we need to do exactly what they did. First, bury the past. Actually process and accept the reality of the loss. And second, go straight to Jesus for an authentic outpouring. Don't just sit there, actively take that pain directly to the perfect listener.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here, it's the power of one. Literally just one single, authentic, tearful outpouring to the Lord is worth hundreds of frantic, superficial comforts you might try to dig up out in the world. He doesn't think you're being too fragile. He doesn't think you're being too dramatic. Bringing your heartbreak to him exactly as raw and messy as it is the single most important step in navigating the depths of human sorrow.
All right, section 2, sharing the highest joy, when your cup overflows.
Now, what's really interesting here is the massive emotional contrast. We're flipping the script. In Mark chapter 6, the 12 disciples have just returned from this massive mission. And we are talking unprecedented, off-the-charts victory here. Successful preaching, healing the sick, changing lives, the whole shebang. They were just buzzing with adrenaline and pure excitement. And what did they do? They eagerly gathered right around Jesus to spill every single detail. They didn't hold back an ounce of their excitement just to seem humble. They just let it all out.
I absolutely love this historical anecdote because it hits the nail right on the head when it comes to this feeling. There was a famous 19th century preacher named Charles Spurgeon. One day, he's out riding horses in the countryside with a friend just trying to relax. And out of nowhere, he is hit by an immense, overwhelming wave of pure joy in his heart. It was so strong that he abruptly jumps right off his horse, right there onto the dirt road, and tells his totally bewildered friend to get down too.
His friend is probably looking at him like he's totally lost it, right? He asks what on earth they are doing, and Spurgeon simply replies with this beautiful quote, "God has just given us a moment of great joy. We must immediately thank him." So right there, kneeling in the dirt, they prayed. Listen, taking your happiness and actively splitting your joy with him is something he deeply, deeply delights in experiencing alongside you. He never thinks you're bragging, and he never thinks you're being frivolous.
But let's be real. Look at how our human instincts usually work. We instinctively cry out to the Lord when we are drowning in sorrow, desperately looking for a lifeline. Yet, our fatal flaw is that we frequently forget all about him the very second the sun comes out and things start going our way. We're so quick to share our grief, but we hoard our joy. This is a super powerful reminder for all of us not to let human nature cause us to forget the perfect listener when things are actually going incredibly well.
Moving on to Section 3, True Meaning of Rest, How the Perfect Listener Responds.
So when the disciples were pouring out their hearts, Jesus gives this exact response. Come with me to a quiet place and get some rest. Notice something incredibly important here. He doesn't just pat them on the back, say great job or I'm so sorry, and then send them away to go figure it out or rest by themselves. He doesn't dismiss them.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates what true rest actually is. True rest is not worldly isolation. We so often think that when we're overwhelmed, we just need to go be alone on a lonely beach somewhere or hide up in the mountains. But how often do we come back feeling just as empty? True rest, as we see right here, is a direct invitation into a dedicated, safe space of divine companionship. It's the with me part of that quote that really matters. The ultimate cure for our empathy limit, for our deep modern loneliness, is his actual presence drawing us closer to refresh our exhausted souls.
Which brings us to Section 4, Tell him everything today. No detail is too small. As we wrap up this explainer, let's bring these massive theological ideas right down to earth, into your everyday life. This applies to the entire spectrum of the human experience. We're talking unbearable, heartbreaking losses, frustrating, tiny daily grievances, like sitting in awful traffic or dealing with a rude comment at work, overwhelming, hidden sins that you are just too ashamed to speak out loud, and leaping, uncontainable joys that you just want to shout from the rooftops. I'm challenging you today to stop hiding these realities. The God who designed the cosmos never ever looks down on your small things, because if we never share our most secret joys and our deepest pains with him, our relationship is only ever going to remain on the surface.
So I want to leave you with a lingering, provocative question to think about today. What do you want to tell him right now? I strongly urge you, whatever secret you're holding on to, whatever heavy weight is sitting right on your chest, or whatever huge excitement is just bubbling up inside you, do not let the human empathy limit isolate you tonight. Just take it and go tell him. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I will see you next time.